Hello, and welcome to another of our interviews with the founders of the Novum Insights Momentum pairs. So at Novum, we've been tracking the fastest growing projects, largely using data from Uniswap, and obviously it's a big DeFi boom at the moment, and I think this is a special occasion for me because I first met the founder of Finance.vote token, Nick Almond, 2 to 3 years ago. Had an absolutely fascinating conversation about quadratic voting and all of Nick's ambitions, and he was have collaborated with some of Nick's friends as well over the time. So it's been a project that I've really seen from the really, like, from its baby steps. I'd say it was pretty much you at that time, Nick. I'd say
that's right.
So obviously, Finance.vote, you're one of the fastest growing tokens so far this year, at least on Uniswap. Very impressive how it's been coming all together. What's got you to this point, Nick?
Yeah, I was just thinking back to when we did, mate. It was about 3 years ago, I think. Yeah. So at that time, I was exploring quadratic voting mainly for like political use cases. I was shopping around a little Brexit vote and on a little MVP I'd thrown together at a hackathon, and I've been sort of very interested in governance tools. I mean, I was a governance researcher for a long time. So I've just come out of academia about 8 months ago to start Finance.vote. And in that period, I've been a lifer academic up to that point. So it's in that time, I've been a physicist by background, but in my sort of later years, I was focused on how to organize people and get productive work out of them, how to collect intelligence from large organizations. And I sort of got very interested in how quadratic voting could be used to collect preferences from people. So get people to declare their preferences on certain issues. And around, so this has been bubbling for years, like you said, but it was around the DeFi summer period last year. So I've been, researching intensely the blockchain crypto space for 5 or 6 years now, and realized where the adoption was going. So if I wanted to get people on-ramped into a blockchain ecosystem to do voting, you have to go where the users are. So, I had this sort of very broad idea for how to build a voting platform, and ended up sort of piling all this into the DeFi use case. So using quadratic voting and Sybil resistant voting to make better decisions in the DeFi space. So Finance.vote is a kind of we call it the consensus layer for DeFi, and it's the idea that we're going to build these we call them consensus apps, or little DApps that fit into DAOs and other decision-making systems to kind of level up the governance capabilities of DeFi.
Amazing. So I think obviously, like, I think we're super excited about the project. I played around with it myself and found I won a ridiculous amount of FVTs. Very for that.
You voted at the right time.
Yeah, exactly. Luckily I met Nick. I think I was in one of the first votes, but then probably forgot about it for a couple of months, and then the project, as its way in crypto, went and evolved in a big way. So I've started voting more regularly, having seen the rules.
Yeah. It might be useful to sort of explain that to people, I guess. Yeah. So our launch application is called Markets.vote. So Finance.vote is this kind of umbrella thing for a bunch of these sub.vote applications. Yeah. And Markets.vote is a prediction market. So the idea is that we give people a list of tokens and people vote on them using quadratic voting based on their belief that it's going to perform in the future. So we have these like week-long market periods. So at any one point you're voting on the market state some point in the future. So you came in, voted like 5 times on 3 or 4 tokens, and one of them came in. And I think what happens is that if you have votes on the winning token, you share the pool based on the number of votes. So at the time, the gas prices were super high. So that's why you won quite a chunk of the reward pool, about 25% of it, I think. Because not many people had votes on that token, and also there wasn't many voters at the time because it cost about $130 to vote.
And my vote this week cost $200, right? So it's definitely a it's buyer beware, or wake up when have your grade tracker to find out exactly when to use the platform. And actually, that's a really, really interesting point. We've seen Uniswap version 3 coming out using optimistic rollups. The sort of I think, what's your take on Ethereum making your platform usable? I think you had a grant from Matic originally, right? So
no, we didn't actually. We've looked at Matic. I mean, so our principle was that, look, we know that it's going to be expensive on chain. I mean, when we built the Ethereum version, it cost about $5 to vote, and the gas prices elevating to what they have surprised us as well. But fortunately, we're at this point where we can play the multi-chain space. So we've just built a bridge that will allow us to bridge our token to any EVM compatible chain. So we're launching on Binance Smart Chain today, for example, where the gas fees are far smaller, and our users really want a low fee environment to play this game in, buy their identities and get voting. And so we're solving the gas price problem by moving that component of the application to different chains. So it's our goal to have an instance of it on all the popular EVM compatible chains.
Great. And will it mean, do I need to be moving my MetaMask tokens onto a BSC compatible wallet to be able to get the lower fee?
We're trying to. So what we've discovered is that we're one of the very first projects to be doing this. So we've just been wrestling for the last few weeks around node infrastructure. So the BSC nodes, for example, just they weren't providing the data necessary to run our vote. We just cracked it this morning, actually. But we're sort of pushing this multi-chain thing into a sort of new space. But you need to bridge tokens from Ethereum to Binance, for example, or you can buy them on those chains. So we're essentially going to have probably a dozen different tokens that are all checked in and out by this bridge system, and you can either buy the tokens on that blockchain through their own native dexes, or you can bridge your tokens between these things and sort of arbitrage between them. So it's a bit clunky. The multi-chain space is early, but one of the things we're trying to do is grease the wheels on getting people to be able to do it. So at the moment, you need to go into your MetaMask and connect to the Binance Smart Chain nodes. So that it's not exactly super user friendly, but we've got users who are they're deep into chasing tokens on all these different emergent chains and everything. So it's like going into the new world. It's a bit janky at the moment, but we'll get it.
I find it super exciting anyway. We've both been in this space. We met in 2017, and at that time there were barely any working projects in crypto.
Yes, that's
all
true.
Theoretical and buy into this token sale, and it was just you had no idea. It was just people chasing the earth, and so I find this really, really exciting. I find it exciting that I have to admit it I can see for your business, it completely invalidates the business model, other than that the returns are outsized if you get the vote right, just because the barriers to entry. But I can see that.
It's like
not
being
sustainable.
So at the moment you need an identity in order. So we've created this thing called a decentralized identity token, so you need an NFT
Yeah.
And holding one of these NFTs whitelists you into our vote markets. So we've got this crypto economic sort of interplay between the more people who are playing this game, the more the rewards get diluted.
Yeah.
So you went in when there wasn't many people playing, so you got quite a large share of the rewards. But so our voters 10x'd last week. So the game's more competitive.
Yeah.
But we also stop everyone from playing by gating it with this identity tokens, which are like sold on an auction. So they're about $10,000 each at the moment because everyone tried to buy them at once.
Oh, cool.
So your NFT is worth $10,000 as well.
My NFT is worth $10,000.
Well, depending on how you say, price it in. But
I need to vote properly and just keep. But I like it. What I do love about what you've been doing is you've been thinking very, very long and hard about the governance systems, the voting, and the gamification of these things, which I think lends it really well to this current stage of crypto, where you built one of the early products that actually works and you can do stuff with, right? So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so our philosophy is we've actually got, I think it's 13 products in our roadmap. And we can do this because, I mean, for one, in order to hit all those things in that roadmap, we're going to have to sort of decentralize the development process a little bit and have it run from a DAO treasury. But the nature of DApps is that it's the smart contracts that matter. So we've got great smart contract engineer who can like basically turn my thoughts into token engineering. And then we've got, great products developer Naomi who can essentially make these beautiful designs. And then we've got these front end development teams who can stitch these, beautiful front ends into a smart contract. We don't use servers. We're completely serverless. We use IPFS and ENS. And we're trying to land this kind of like rapid shipping sort of development trajectory where we don't just want a product that works, which is kind of revolutionary at the moment anyway, but a lot of products that kind of ship out in consistent fashion. So we by the end of April, we'll have 3 products on mainnet, and we're aiming for 6 to 7 by the end of Q2. So yeah, we're trying to showcase what can be done with shipping product in Web3. If it's done right, it can be done in a way that's more effective or quicker and more rapid prototyping than conventional software architecture, if you like multi-platform mobile apps, for example.
And I guess if I'm porting my identity over to Binance Smart Chain, do I need to create a separate identity, or do I need to?
So it's like a new game, right? So each of these vote markets can be considered a crypto economic game that people are playing. And the Binance Smart Chain one is like a new game. So the identities are going to be cheaper because they decay in price more rapidly. So they go up and down in price. And people are curating a different set of tokens there. So they're curating all the Binance flavored tokens over there. So what we're trying to do is get people to curate the best 21 tokens, say, on each of these chains. And then start.
So in theory, you can move over to Polkadot or wherever of that.
Yeah. So what we'll have actually is a bunch of different voting state on all these different blockchains. Mm-hmm. And actually, the Polkadot use case is about rationalizing these different state islands into a kind of meta state. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we're looking at Polkadot. It's in our roadmap. We're targeting Kasama first. Cool. There was a lot of pressure on DeFi projects at the time that we were launching to really welly into the kind of like Polkadot hype, and you'll see there's a load of like PokerX projects that really sort of monopolized on that. And funnily enough, we've got quite strong ties with the Web3 Foundation, and we just didn't feel like it was Polkadot's just a little bit too early.
Yeah. And interesting.
You will end up back in 2017 era if everyone's building stuff on blockchains that don't function or have the tooling yet. So we're going where the action is, where you can actually ship real products on chain. They might be expensive to start with at the moment because the scaling isn't there, but they work, and we can prove out.
It is a worrying thing to me how speculative the space can be, right? Because Polkadot, what now is like one of, like, definitely in the top 5, maybe top 3. Market cap tokens, and if it's still impossible to build stuff on it, then there's a big problem, right?
I mean, it's if we're going to come into this slope of enlightenment phase of the hype cycle, then people need to actually be able to build on it. And there's real evidence of that. And I think the explosion of like EVM chains, it basically forks of Ethereum and Geth on these different consensus mechanisms of slightly different trust models and what have you, is where we're probably going to be. I do anticipate. I mean, we've been keeping a close eye on Polkadot. I mean, less so ADA, for example, which is number 3. If we hit this moment in the cycle where everything that got funded in 16, 17 actually ships this year, then, it's bull run isn't cancelled. But we definitely need.
There's a lot of expectation out there riding on these things, right? I sort of you kind of give up hope. I mean, but the but the great thing is I think the whole Ethereum ecosystem is, and now Binance, things are working.
And even as expensive it is to use, the Ethereum space has converged on DeFi, which makes high value transactions viable. So the amount of liquidity and economic bandwidth on that chain now is astronomical, and it makes sense that there are people spending thousands of dollars in a transaction because it makes economic sense to do so, and that just wasn't there in 2017. There wasn't the DApps that made transacting with the chain. If you looked at the Ethereum blow off top, it was right on the day that CryptoKitties happened. That when some guy bought a crypto kitty for $100,000, which seemed crazy at the time, but now we've got NFTs selling for $1 million. But there's just a lot more. There's a lot more people working on it. Blockchains are value capture layers, and there's a lot of people building on this time around. There's like a huge industry there that wasn't there before. So I'm optimistic that we're not just gonna. I don't think we're too overvalued at the moment.
I think it seems a real growth. I mean, there's a lot going on, but at the end of the day, products are shipping, and like we're at the early stage where you can actually go out and use Markets.vote. I'm really excited to see the next products that you've got in line. What's the next one that's going to be?
So the next 2 are Yield.vote and Influence.vote. So Yield.vote is our crack at liquidity incentive management. So for me, if you look right when the DeFi boom happened, it was when Compound started giving away free money to liquidity providers. And essentially, I've been saying this for a while, that the DeFi space is built on quantitative easing. What happened is that projects started, so that like Compound didn't have a token, Yearn and Finance at the time didn't have a token, but they issued these governance tokens in an attempt to sort of decentralize their multi-sigs, to take out the management keys that were like the deal breakers when things went wrong. And so then they had a big, huge reserve of assets that they then started issuing to participants in the network through, and this is kind of the principle of token economics, or one of the fundamentals, this idea of mechanism design. Someone's behaving in a certain way you want in the system, pay them for it. And, a lot of that is built into our design, and Yield.vote is, we built a platform that will allow projects on the market to feed tokens to their users for providing liquidity or staking their tokens. So you come along and stake your tokens or stake LP tokens, which essentially prove that you're providing liquidity in the market. And then you earn a return, you earn a yield on that in the native assets of those platforms. And we've built a couple of interesting sort of crypto economic primitives for brokering access to that emission rate. And then after that, we've got Influence.vote, which is our crack at snapshot voting. So we've taken some of the design principles that have emerged from snapshot.page, which is kind of open source library, a governance client, and we're building our own with quadratic voting at the heart of it. And breaking out, we call this our second layer governance suite, because we're trying to there's been a few instances where governance has gone wrong, and someone can essentially vote to mint more tokens, or rebase the asset or something, and the whole thing dies. Like, they put too much power in control of the tokens at that stage, and it opens you up to governance attacks. So we've built this kind of like layered governance system, which we start launching next month, and that we can use for anything. We're going to be voting on the monetary policy of our yield and markets, but we're also going to be voting on memes and all this kind of rough consensus, people sorting the best sources in the space and trying to get people to incentivize people to help us do content curation, for example. So we're going to start curating art with it, things like that, which I'm quite excited about.
Yeah. Well, super cool. And it's and I like all that you've been doing. It's been a great I feel lucky to have known you in a way, because it was sort of I was like when I found out the project was launching, I was going, this is pretty interesting, kept an eye on it. And then, like, just because we're tracking, we basically have a tool that looks at the 250 most trending tokens in Uniswap, and our analyst I starred FVT and just went, let's keep it on, and then suddenly it flared up like 30% in a week, and we were like, I was like, this is really interesting. Nick's a really interesting guy. Everyone, like, we've got this small little group where we discuss ideas, and like, you should look at this. And like every single week it was like up 50%, up 50%. I was just like, yeah, Nick's really clearly onto something. And I already voted. I thought it was quite fun. And yeah, kudos. Long
Thank you very much, Toby.
I'm looking forward to the next phase of it.
Excellent. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. No, it's been a pleasure to see what you're doing with Novum as well, and I think we'll find a way to collaborate in the future.
Most definitely. Well, thanks very much for the interview, Nick, and
appreciate it.